Hey, welcome to Lab, the podcast. Grateful to share some time today with Pamela Poisson and Sarah Farra, co-founders of Dream Team Shows, both artists, writers, producers of the original Christmas musical, Undercover Elves. Sarah is a singer, an actress, a writer, a coach. She spent years rising in the executive levels in corporate America, all the while pursuing her love for music and theater and even the health of the body. Her first major motion picture as an actress was A Carolina Christmas that released in theaters nationwide in December of 2020. She has held numerous state pageant titles, including Mrs. North Carolina America and Mrs. South Carolina United States. She loves coaching the next generation, helping them get stage ready. And in 2024, became friends with Pamela, and the adventure of Dream Team Shows began. Pamela also is an artist raised in sunny southern Florida, and sunshine baked in her soul. She's been writing original music and singing since the time she was a child, and by the time she was a teenager was composing music and performing. She's been commissioned to compose for choirs, stage performance, graduated with a degree in education from Texas Women's University, and has spent 25 years helping people make their lives healthier. She's been featured in over 1,000 performances, written musicals, and is a sought-after speaker and performer. So Pamela, Sarah, thank you for giving up time to do this. We are so excited.
Thanks for having us.
I learned something new about you. How does that
happen?
Yeah, it's fun when people hear their bios all the time and they're like, I forgot all about that part of that was like 10 years of my life that I just spent. But yeah, so good to have you in to celebrate. So congratulations on writing a really beautiful show. And we want to celebrate that. But the conversation, this conversation really is rooted back to our conversation in December of last year. We met at an event to unveil a piece of art at Oxford Exchange, and Sarah was there and was gracious enough to invite me to a workshop show of Undercover Elves. And we had not met yet. I got that invitation, and something about that invitation sparked a curiosity in me because of the performing arts, and we'll get into that in a second. But I took you up on the offer and found my way to the theater. What was that? Ritchie Suncoast Theater was the theater. And I was late. So I was late that day. I flew in, found a place to park, and just made it before they were buttoning up the doors. And I had never been to a workshop show before. So this was new to me. And I didn't know what to expect, but I sat down. And for the next hours, I was immersed in something so beautiful and so enchanting that I was sitting there thinking about having this conversation. So this is a long time coming. That's my long way of saying I couldn't wait to talk about the performance. So
yeah, honor is ours. I am thrilled, and it was a God thing, just how we met. But Daniel got invited, and I said, well, I don't know. I never turned down the chance to put on a fancy dress and see art. And I met you and Cammie, and I knew right away there was something special about how you view art. And it takes someone in that field to be able to see what we're trying to produce. So yeah, thank you.
Well, seeing that, I think you call out something really important. It's something that's important to this podcast. That's why we're all listening, because we're looking for the life and beauty of the gospel in the world. That's we're always just looking out and trying to find it. And we think it comes through the arts in such a powerful way, particularly the performing arts. And this is a space we've talked to so many singers and writers and artists who do visual arts. But this space of the performing arts, there are not as many people endeavoring to do what you're trying to do. So we're going to talk about Undercover Elves, what you have written, where you're taking that. I also want to talk about Dream Team Shows. But before that, I want to know the backstory and how the two of you met. So maybe, Pamela, I'll let you take that and tell a bit of the story. But how did you all find each other? And then maybe we'll get back into your backstory.
So I received a phone call from John Seda, who has a recording studio in Tampa. And it was kind of a last minute thing. And he said, I have a girl that wants to record some music, and I don't have a pianist that can record this. It was Broadway.
Okay.
And it was songs from the musical Wicked. Thank you. And so I had never watched Wicked. Sorry. I didn't know any of the music. He sent it to me, and it was a little intense. But I said I would give it a shot. We talked a couple times beforehand, and we met that day in the studio. And it was lovely. It was like I knew her forever. That's what it felt like. And then John had an event maybe a month later that he asked us both to perform at this event. And after we both performed, we were just kind of talking. And I was on my way up to Pennsylvania because I was directing a children's adult choir and a children's stage production at a retreat. And her mouth dropped open when I said, yeah, I write Christian children's stage productions. And she said, what?
Yeah, the number of people who do that.
We had no idea that we had that connection. She obviously loves theater. I love theater, and we were just blown away. And so that was the door that opened, and we said, let's get past the next month of the summer, because we both had a very busy schedule, and that led us to August when we met.
Yeah. Let me put a pin in that, and we'll come back to then what happened next. Yeah. But where did your love for theater come?
I don't know. My mom and dad said I kind of came out singing. So I started, my first major solo was I was 3 at the time, it was a church called Fraser United Methodist, which was one of the only churches that was, what's the word? Like broadcast. They had a big television station and huge followings. This was 40 something years ago now, in Montgomery, Alabama.
Okay.
I think we've moved around a lot. We were military. And so, I've just always performed. My dad was a singer. But he was a chaplain and a preacher in the military and also an officer in the military. So singing really took a back seat for him. It was in the shower, in the car. But he did professionally tour Europe when he was younger, before he went in the service.
Yeah. So it's in your bones. It was in your home, music and the arts.
Yeah. And it's funny when I'd like to say I think that's God's gifting for me, but man, nothing can cure that itch. It is just there. Yeah. And it makes things just feel right. And if something's wrong, I can sing it out. And if something's good, I can sing it out. And it makes it better for me.
Even your dad's, the story of your dad as a chaplain, and he's preaching, but he also has this gift of artistry. That's one of the things we're passionate about, is that beauty helps you discover what is good and know what is true. That's kind of the classic way to think, that we lead with beauty. And yet when we're pastoring or in the chaplaincy, it seems to sometimes be that we have to set those things aside in order to get to what people would consider the real work.
Right.
And I love that your dad had both of those gifts and gave you something really beautiful. You were singing as a child as well. If you could trace back, is it mom, dad, grandparents? Where did that gift
my father was a minister.
Oh,
as
wow.
Well.
Okay.
And my family was always singing. It was just a part of our being. And I started classical piano when I was 5 years old. And my teacher was very frustrated with me because I didn't want to stay in the box of Beethoven and Mozart and Chopin. And she allowed me to kind of go outside of that box because I was always adding stuff. And she's like, you can't do that. Yeah. And her opening that door for me, I started, I was playing in church already. And I started performing in church. And it just kind of snowballed from there, writing music for everything. I would even write music to study. To remember facts, But so a very similar kind of thing. My family always singing, road trips, listening to Christy Lane,
Yep.
a long time ago, just singing one day at a time, whatever. But so it's very similar.
Yeah. When did you discover that you had the unique gift to write music and to imagine and hear things that then would become original music? When was that early on?
It was never a discovery. It was just always there.
Okay.
I think the discovery for me came in realizing that it could possibly be a way that God could use me to impact the world.
Yeah.
Or the people around me, even in the smallest way. So I would start writing for things that would happen around me and share that just, on down low with people. And that's when I realized, this is way bigger than me, and it's really not about me at all.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Sarah, was your dream to perform? Was it Broadway? Was that the thing that you were aiming at a young age, or did that just kind of slow boil?
Definitely at a young age. And it's interesting too, because when you have Christian conservative parents and you're a theater kid, you're automatically in these opposing worlds, because theater is not typically conservative. And typically there's a lot of decisions made on stage that are against how you're raised and against your faith.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of headbutting in the process. And then, of course, you hear the line from your dad, you'll never make any money. So you have to double major. And as long as you do this and the, it was, of course, we've all heard the stories. It was that. But I did have a scholarship to studied it at a magnet school in high school, even in middle school, had a scholarship in college. And honestly, I kind of wasn't competitive enough or mean enough to keep up with the other girls.
Yeah.
And I had enough other interest in politics and science. And so I switched majors in international business and dropped the theater, changed colleges and put it on the back burner for years. And then met this really awesome man. He became my voice teacher and he said, you've got to get back out of the doors and just get back on stage. And he got me back on stage.
Was that scary for you at the time to overcome I had set this aside and is it right to pick this back up, or were you dying to let that come back out of you?
Yes. It's scary. It was scarier to leave because it felt like I was abandoning a part of my soul.
Yeah.
So it was scarier to admit that I wasn't, it was very sad. I mean, I was probably not clinically, but I was very depressed for years of being back in the 8 to 5 world of non-performing,
Yeah.
But yeah, then I found it again.
Yeah.
And it was nonstop ever since.
I could go completely nerd on you, but Riley won't allow it. But you all know from listening to the podcast that it's a Western world problem, the disenchantment of the Western world and the Enlightenment move toward rationalization and all those things. They're unconsciously in the air. And in the Western world, that's what has led to the decline of the arts. And especially in Christian theology, we've just underappreciated to it. In the Protestant Reformation, we said, we're going to anchor down on truth, and beauty and goodness, maybe if we get around to those. But that's not the way the world always was. And even the church knew that communicating through beauty, and you mentioned your experience of singing and the way that even the scriptures are permeated. So much of it is poetry and song, and it's in our blood as people of God who is writing the artistry of God. And so there's a recovery to come back to it because so many people Leonardo da Vinci had to set down a commission, one of my favorite commissions, the Adoration of the Magi. He was literally commissioned by a monastery to paint this incredible picture of the Adoration of the Magi, and they ran out of money and he had to go get a job. And you think, how many artists have felt that same thing? You got to get a second major. You're never going to make it. That can't be the way that you sustain yourself. And yet you were made to make something. And so the two of you came together in 2024 to do what I think is one of the most courageous and important things that needs to be done in the recovery back to the proper kind of unification of the place of the arts in our world and in theology. And you created a production company, Dream Team Shows, to help not just produce one show, but maybe create an ecosystem where artists don't have to set that gift aside. That's a courageous thing. Pamela, how did that conversation start? You don't just sit down and go, well, do you want to start a theater company?
I mean, you kind of do.
Maybe that's exactly what you do.
Well, honestly, taking it back to the seed, Sarah said to me, I love taking shows and kind of changing them, reading them, adding to them. And I had been writing children's productions, and I had a show called The Holly Jolly Drop. And I came over to her house with different folders of, all the shows that I'd written. And we were like, this is the one. And we took that and we added to it. We changed whatever we changed, added 5. It's going to be 7 more songs to that. And as we were doing that, it kind of was a joke. We were like, oh, we're the Dream Team. We're awesome. We're the Dream Team. And then it just kind of went from there. We're Dream Team Shows. Yeah, we are. And then we looked and said, does anybody own this? And we were like, this is available. What? Yeah. So that's kind of how it happened. We just we were dreaming big. We took something that was small and I don't know, just wanted to make it big,
Yeah. And what is the dream? If you could let us in on the coffee table conversation of Dream Team Shows, what's the dream that God put in there and maybe brought you two together for?
Well, I know, tell him what you told me about your idea within the arts of having a theater. That's like your big dream, I think.
Yeah. And so I think we've found a way to kind of marry them in a lot of ways, because we each have similar skills, but man, we have such different skill sets too, and gifting. So we've really tried to partnership this, but God had put on my heart a couple years ago. I was studying some Hebrew and Greek translations, and Axios kept coming up, and we had even talked about, do Pamela and I want to do a conservative pageant or what could we do that allows Christians or believers an artistic outlet that doesn't feel like you're compromising your faith, because it seems like that's what's being attacked in the world right now, and we don't have a good outlet. And so for me, it was creating a show or a theatrical space where artists can come and you can perform or you can write, but you're free to express your faith, and you're not shunned for that. And we knew before we sat down and really finished writing, we loved our idea, but we sat down and interviewed quite a few executive directors of theaters and said, what would make us marketable and what would make you not want to touch us? And shockingly, every one of them said, if you say Jesus or God, you're out. We won't even touch your script. And I said, okay, well, that's our mission. If we can shine light into corners of the world that aren't getting that. And the other thing is, songs you leave humming. So our goal was, let someone leave a theater humming something that leaves them wanting something more. And they can then search from there. So we might be the seed planters. Someone else is going to sow that even deeper for them. But they have to know that they're exposed to it.
Yeah. And the thing about that too is that music is so powerful. Music breaks down walls. It changes people's hearts in ways that other things can't. People receive music softer than they would a word or someone coming at them trying to have a conversation. So for me, my big thing is less about those tangible things. I mean, I'm all in. But it's also just like impacting people in a way that nothing else can do. Taking music and letting God take that and permeate into people.
Yeah.
And meeting them where they are, healing.
Meeting them where they are.
One of them, I'll brag on her because she's very easy to brag on. But one of the things I've seen Pamela do over the last year, and it's been able to help us even with our scripting, is she'll hear of a need, and suddenly these words come to her, and some of them are rooted in scripture and some are just rooted in a safe place in faith. But she'll sometimes write, she wrote a song for this woman, and she got a phone call later. Of course you can go into it later, but she got a phone call about a week later, and she said, you have no idea that before my daughter died, she shared these words, and they were the lyrics Pamela had put in the song. And she would have never known. It was God. So it's music is really this language that everyone can speak, even if you don't understand where it's coming from. Sorry, that was your story to share.
No, it's fine.
We had that experience when we went to record the symphony in the Czech Republic. Music is universal. And so we took a prosy work and said, this is not going to reach, and it's not going to cross barriers. And even though poetry was nested within that work, it still has barriers. So you got to go further upstream. And the further upstream you go in the arts, you go as far as you can, and you end up at music that speaks universally, and it penetrates to the soul and moves you emotionally, and yet it's rational, it's ordered, it's tonal, all these things, it's all there. And what an incredible gift. Like, I think that's why people say God was singing creation into existence. It's the furthest thing upstream, right? And that's what maybe stood out to me when I was sitting in that theater. Yeah, I love Broadway, and so many times when I'll be watching a show on Broadway, and I'm stunned by the complexity of what's happening. If you really pay attention to what's taking place in that moment as an audience member, you are immersed in all of your senses coming alive in a well choreographed delivery of something that is beautiful and good and true. And it is just brought to you in such a way that you are literally moved in every part of your being by it. I don't think there's an art form like it. I think it's the most complicated thing to try to bring to life, right? And this is what you've endeavored to do in bringing productions, theater productions, and bringing them back to communities, which is an incredibly complicated thing. So we'll come back around to that, but that's Undercover Elves is an original musical written, that you crafted, that has music and theater and stages and all of these things. When you started that project, were you aware of just how difficult it would be to curate that type of experience?
I'm going to go out on a limb here. For me, and I think you're probably the same, it doesn't feel that difficult. And you know why? Because it's the way our being thinks.
Wow.
It's the way we communicate. So, taking that to a little deeper level, when you think about a stage production, the storyline continues through the lyrics of the music, the sound of the music, the speed of the music. So you have this dialogue, right? This written script, but then all of that has to continue. But I don't think, you tell me what you think. I don't think it is difficult, because I think that is a gift that is within us that we're supposed to share. Yeah. And that's humbly said. It's not, I'm not bragging at all, because we do struggle sometimes. We sit there and we're like, oh, we can't think of something. But the overarching thing of that doesn't feel so hard. I don't know.
Yeah.
Now asking me to market it or make a reel
Yes,
about it.
that's the problem.
Heavens, no.
We'll come back to that part.
Yeah, because
that
that's
is not
our
our
gift.
gifting, right? But no, I think our biggest struggle has been we're trying to make this our full-time thing, and we each have full-time things, and we each have 3 children and husbands, and I'm a stay-at-home mom, but still the jobs and volunteering at the school. And so it's really been the time, because we both have said, even Lin-Manuel Miranda, like, he can lock himself in a room for a week because he can, and that's where his funding is. We can't do that. So we're 4 hours at a kitchen table, 1 hour while she's between clients, 20 minutes here. So it's really the scheduling that's been our thing, because we can knock out a song in an hour, or it could take 2 months if it's just that theme.
Well, we'll say not yet. How about that?
Correct.
Sarah, tell us about Undercover Elves. Just give us the snapshot of the story you've written and this one piece of what you're working on. Tell us about Undercover Elves.
So we each kind of have our own elevator speech. It's funny because I think we relate to everybody in it, but the high level, short level, and then you can add your piece to it, would be you've got some elves that are on a secret mission. And it's not quite as cheesy as it sounds, but it's super fun. And there's 2 families that are going to be brought together, one that has more means and one that is not as well to do. And both families are struggling and with different things. And we don't want to have a spoiler, but the elves bring them together. And pretty much it's the old school angel tree that you saw as a kid. One family that needs something, their name goes on the tree, and then you have a family that has extra means and they pick the name off the tree. And it turns into a beautiful orchestration of these families, and you see children. And we decided to take it deeper, and we even deal with the mother having anxiety of not being able to keep up, and the father lost his job in the economy, and so they've had to downsize. And we talk about the one mom that has spoiled kids, and I'm doing everything I can. I'm out of ideas. So we don't shy away from, it's just all a happy Christmas musical. It's actually, these are real life pressures that families deal with, and how can they still rise together in that process.
At the workshop show, I was literally moved to tears when it took a turn into a particular area with the family and the inner story. And I'm sitting there in this theater, moved to tears by the performance. And these are folks that have just kind of stood this up to show and workshop it. But that's the power of that type of performance. And it was the music and the way that it was written and moving the heart and the words that were being shared, and just enough, but not too much. And tell us a little bit about how you were able to craft the music and the story and what you were hoping audiences would experience.
Let me tell you a story to respond to that. We did this show, and of course, our goal was, because I know that God can speak even if I don't speak his name. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that makes any sense, what I just 100%. Said, but like, we want to have the biggest opportunity in front of the most audiences for this impact. And so we had someone come up to us after the show and say to us, I hate Christmas shows. And the only reason why he was there is because he knew people that were in the show. And he said, but I love this show. I would recommend the show to my friends. And he said, I'm an atheist, but I could see how there might be something more. And that's the name of one of the songs. So when you're talking about like crafting it, I think we approach every writing session. We pray before we write. We open ourselves up to just like whatever direction. You should see us. We look like complete crazy people. She's pacing back and forth. And I'm playing weird things on the piano. We have like voice memos on our phones of all of us going, all these crazy things. But from that comes this, we just get to this place. So as far as like crafting it, I don't even know. It's not just like a recipe so organic.
She makes the best banana bread I've ever had, right? But she's so good at it. She doesn't have to look at the recipe anymore, you know? And for us, it's being together. We've learned we write better in person than on the phone. We try it when we need to, but we're better in person. But it's just I don't want to be cheesy, but it's an organic creation. And you just have to be really vulnerable and able to explore, and you have to be willing to fail. I mean, we've even had a few arguments that were not great, but we had to be willing to have the tough conversations to say, is this right? Does this work? And
I'll tell you the other thing too is, these characters have been crafted in such a way that we, in our minds, view them as real people. Right. So we say to each other, May would not do that. She wouldn't think this way. Her husband, Marcus, would not say that. This particular child would not do that. And so there have been many times that we're going in a direction of writing and we're like, hold on a minute. That's not staying true to that character, because that character is sending the message of whatever we want somebody else to get out of it, how we want that person to speak. So we do have a lot of that too, where we really try to stay true to what is the end goal here? What's the character's personality and description and the hope of that character?
Yeah. Well, you did it in such a remarkable way because there were virtues that you were communicating through that story that are timeless, universal. We would all say those are good, right? Like universally, it doesn't matter what faith you ascribe to. We all are moved by there's a goodness that's held out in that story, but it's done in a really winsome way that I think even crafting a Christmas story opens the opportunity for families who are looking for something to just enjoy. It's just delightful. It's beauty. It makes us want to go do something. And the season is like that.
Yes.
But then we get in there and you invite us to confront these themes that are within ourselves. That's what this art form does in such a powerful way. And what is it about theater? Maybe you can both go on this, but why is that art form so powerful in its ability to communicate not just virtues, like an idea, a big idea, but also like a story? You think about, you mentioned Hamilton, like my young son who's in 5th grade, he now has history nested within him. He has virtue, that's the courage to stand up and to be for something, and he's singing and it's musical. Why is that art form uniquely powerful in your view to communicate truth in such a powerful way?
Walls are broken down and every sense is just drenched with it.
Yeah.
Really.
Yep.
Someone walks in there, they're open.
Yeah.
And then everything is put inside of them. I mean, it's visual, it's hearing, it's sight, it's sound. Sometimes, like a theater, the scent of a theater, I mean, all of it, the feeling, the texture of this, I mean, all of it adds to that experience. And I think it, again, it just kind of overwhelms the senses in a way.
Yeah.
And I think I take more of a mental health approach to it, ironically, in the sense that it allows you to sit in the audience or even be the actress. And it's not Sarah Farra dealing with that emotion, but I can then say, this is a safe place for me to allow myself into this emotion. How would I react? What would my husband do? What would my children do? And I can let it all out, but it's not me. So it's not my fault. It's not me. So I'm not embarrassed. It's someone else, if that makes sense. And so for me, it's a very safe place, especially being someone, I tend to have high anxiety and bouts of depression. And I think sometimes that makes me a better writer. But I admit that vulnerably because people think that that's going to hold them back, but it doesn't. It's actually a uniqueness to say, I get that emotion, so let me write that deeper so you're not alone in this fight and there's ways out
Yeah, because if
If that
someone
makes
can
sense.
recognize
does.
themselves or their family, or, none of us are an island unto ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And it's comforting to know there are others that are out there dealing with the same thing and they're making it, or they're, can be positive about it or find the good or whatever.
Or it's
Case may
okay
be.
to even have the emotion.
It's okay to have the
right?
emotion.
I'm not validating your reaction to it, but I'm saying it's real. And then there's other options of how to deal with it. So I think for me, it's therapeutic.
Yeah.
It was
If that's
very
okay to
interesting.
say.
It was very interesting because after the show, of course, people come up to you and they're talking with you and whatever. But we had people come up to us that unexpectedly said to us, I don't know why, but you made me cry and I don't cry, or
Yeah.
like men that just look like, real tough guys. And they were like, oh my gosh, I was tearing up and I didn't want to tear up, but I was, so that's the way that God can use us. I don't even know how to explain it.
One of the things that was important to me with Undercover Elves in particular, because originally there wasn't a husband in the show.
No.
We added, many characters and other things, but I was so tired of seeing men in media be these weak, unhealthy men that didn't run their household. They weren't faithful. They didn't, I don't want to say manage their wife. That's going to open a whole can of worms, but they weren't a strong husband.
Sure.
Because you can have a strong husband and wife, but man, you've got to be a partnership.
Yeah.
And what we were able to write into this musical was this husband that sees his wife and he knows she's strong, but she is just at a weak time in her life. And he is able to come alongside her and speak her love language.
Yeah.
And you saw him doing that. And that was so important because, man, my husband has saved me more times than I care to admit.
Yeah.
And I needed to honor what their role is supposed to be.
Yeah. So cool that you're able to take those things and as you're saying, create a space where we can look at them and maybe look through them in a way that allows us to be comfortable to even explore something. Like I can put myself in that character's shoes, or maybe I'm being called to
Or
put
hold the mirror
myself
if you need to.
Yes, yes. So good. What is your hope for audiences? Like, so how does a show like this, you stand up Dream Team shows, you write this original Christmas musical. Where does it go from here? How does it get to audiences?
So this has been our trial, honestly. It's been our mountain.
Yeah.
Ideally, it would be put out either through a brokerage, where they would kind of, they have all those connections to places. Sarah can speak more to this. She was on the research team for that. I did other stuff. But so it's either going to be that or it's going to be through connections. But I mean, we really want to make this available internationally for any theater to be able to take it in during the Christmas season. And what we didn't realize is as we were speaking to our various connections in this space, they were saying, you've tapped into something that is actually very needed. And they were talking about Christmas shows in general, because these community theaters, they do the same shows repackaged in different ways. And this is something fresh and new that any theater can put on. And it's not going to be a conflict of interest for anyone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's so exciting. That's one of the things when I was thinking about having you both here to have this conversation, one of my hopes was to kind of, people just have no idea. We don't understand how art goes out and finds its way to the people who need to find their way to that art, right? There's a whole bunch that takes place there. And knowing this story, you're almost at the finish line to get this to the point where community theaters can take this and then they can take it and put it into their communities. So that's what's so exciting about this is communities internationally can find their way to the show and it's all ready for them. It's in a form where they can take it and then activate the gifts in their community. But we're like just about there and there's a gap to get it there.
Right.
And there's a financial investment that's needed and a time element that's needed. Talk just a little bit about what you need to really put this in a position so that community theaters can take it and run with it.
Sure. And that was part of the research that we had done is we went out and started interviewing executive directors from all over the country. We were lucky to have connections between the two of us. And we said, what what do you need? And most community theaters have very little budget right now. So they need a package deal. They need a show. I don't want to say a show in a box, but they need a show. They need one they can buy tracks to that are accessible. They need one they can buy rehearsal tracks to in case they can't afford live instruments. So part of our challenge was to also write tracks to where it's a plug and play if you need it. You get your actors, you build your set. But we also want to be able to write sheet music to where the orchestra can come into play. So we're at the point now, we really would ideally love a title sponsor.
Yeah.
We really need about $20,000 to get to the last bit of the goal. Things that would go into that would be our studio time. We've produced a lot between Pamela and some friends, but we still need that high quality final production.
Sure.
And then we need to be able to afford the software or the orchestra to write the instrumentation for the pieces, because that is tedious and time consuming. And then we also need to be able to spend some of that money getting the right actor voices in so that they don't have to listen to me and Pamela try to sing in a little kid voice and a man voice. And we could, but it's not ideal for anyone to learn
and
with
this
that
is
track.
Just that $20,000 is just to bring everything up to the level so that when a theater says,
marketable.
we want to have this show, we can say, here you go, it's ready to roll.
Take it and run with
That
it.
doesn't even include like other things that we might want to do. I mean, when you're talking about, like we were speaking with a college recently about possibly doing a true show in a box where we come in and we have sets built and costuming and all of that. That's a completely different level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm excited about. I'll show my hand in this. I want to bring this show to Tampa. I would love to rent a theater in Tampa and put this on in Tampa.
Us too.
Right? Yeah. Let's go. Right. I think it should be in Tampa. We should do it first here in Tampa. So we'll keep praying for that.
Yeah.
And I think for everybody listening, I think one of the things we want to do always is we say we're just trying to find people whose lives and work give us a glimpse of the life and beauty of the gospel. Done. Both of you in just staying faithful, using the gifts God's given you, not just as performing artists, but taking that and letting it develop into now producing and writing and creating something that other communities, colleges, community theaters, that's what it looks like when you nurture the gift that God has given you and the impact that it can have. So take that away. But also for so many people who are a part of our ecosystem, the question Riley and I get all the time is, well, how can we help? How can we be a part of this work from V3 to express the life and beauty of the gospel in the world? And even yesterday, we were having this conversation, and this is a great example of that you hear this and you go, man, it's a $20,000 gap to catalyze the work that you are all doing and put a theater show together that a community, maybe in New York or maybe in Seattle, can take and begin engaging audiences that would never find their way to the message that you've nested within this show. And all of a sudden, here they are face to face with this beautiful production. It's a 20,000 thing. Right. So here's what I want to invite you to do. Pray for this show. Pray for Dream Team shows. Pray for Undercover Elves. And pray for the $20,000 gap. I just want to ask you to put that up on your mirror and make it a part of your prayer with your family. And then who knows? If you have $20,000 and you want to invest in this show, you can either go direct and I'll tell you how to do that, or call me and just say, I want to sponsor it, and we'll find a way to stand that up. But
we thank you for that.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. But part of what we want to do, in addition to asking people to pray and to give, is to just cheer you on. So I want to ask you as artists, because it's tough to keep going. It's tough to tuck your shoulder and go, okay, we're going to believe that we're going to take the next steps. How do you keep going when you get discouraged, when you feel like the doors are just closed and the lift is too heavy? What is it where do you turn as an artist to refresh that thing inwardly that keeps you using the gift God's given you? I'm Zach Elliott, Executive Director of UVIVO, and together with our partners, we are recovering the deep Christian tradition of standing behind the arts by making significant investment in visual art, music, and literature. We're working together with some of the world's most gifted fine artists, composers, and authors to wondrously reveal Christianity and invite people to know God personally. This work to recover the tradition of standing behind the arts is going to take a fresh generation of patrons committed committed to resourcing and releasing these great artists to use the highest and best of their gifts to the glory of God and for the good of the world. You can join us in that work by becoming a V3 partner. Reach out for more information or go to vuvivo.com/support to join us in standing behind the arts.
Yeah, a couple years ago, I was just trying to find the right prayer language, if you will.
Yeah.
And it just kept coming back to me like your voice can be your own language. Your voice is your song and how you communicate to me. So I don't know. I just sing louder and louder until I feel like I have an answer. It annoys my children and my husband, but I sing when I'm lost. I typically go old school, but lately Carrie Underwood has been doing some of that for me. But normally I go more, oh Lord, my God, and just start singing. But
sing.
I
just
sing my
use the
prayers.
gift. Yeah,
I do.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, we all go through things in our lives, and sometimes are harder than others. And, I have to recenter sometimes. And part of what I do, music is the way that I feel that God speaks to me. And so it may be kind of like what Sarah said, just sitting and singing and playing. But, I think what's nice, us being like-minded, there have been moments where each of us has come to the other and it has been frustrated or unsure. And we've been able to be strong for the one who was weak in that moment. And that's the beautiful thing about, how God works and he brings people together that can support each other, and it's been, we're both type A personalities and both of us have done this all by ourselves. I've never worked with anybody else to do any of this stuff. I've directed myself and she's done the same thing. So it's been a huge learning curve. I can speak for myself.
You can speak for me too.
Yeah. And not always in the most comfortable way,
Yeah.
but like this is, fire makes it better.
Yeah.
We go through things, it makes it better.
Yeah.
So, I think we just support each other in it.
But our big prayer this year, and I say for us, specifically for Dream Team shows and personally, it has just been, okay, God, just open the doors that you want opened and close the ones that you want closed because we want to be using our resources, financial and our time resources, the best way we can.
Yep.
And all we can do is just have the faith that he's going to do that. Because man, I get frustrated when some of those close that I really wanted open. But that's been the other part of the prayer is just God open them and God close them and close them tight.
I do want to say the other thing too that makes our show very unique that people have mentioned to us is the factor of bringing community into this show. So many times people walk in to see a show, they are entertained, they take away whatever they take away. But once they leave that theater, the door closes, that's done. The beauty of this show is that communities can actually get involved. When you think about what this show represents, people grabbing names from a tree, exchanging gifts, exchanging love, exchanging time, whatever that is. We talked about having trees all over the community where all of these sponsors have the ability to promote the message of what this is.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing too? I think Lewis said you can slip past the watchful dragons and give a community the ability to all of a sudden find themselves participating in something really redemptive, really hope-giving and life-giving. And in a way that they are surprised by. They go, how did that happen? The downstream effect. That's what we always say is the life and beauty of the gospel. And how could that spring up in Chicago, in some neighborhood?
Yeah.
And well, it comes because beauty helps you discover what is good and find yourself knowing what is true. And so this production, I think, will do that. I'm confident that it'll get there. God's going to provide the $20,000 and open the doors. And your courage to fight for it and to lean into this space as artists is inspiring to us, and I think to everybody listening. And I want to give you the chance before we wrap up, because I want to respect your time, but for that person who has set down their gift, maybe it's not an artistic thing. They are not going to stand up a show. They're not going to write a symphony or paint a painting, but they have been given a gift and they're listening to this and they're like, okay, great. I'm going to pray for you. Maybe I'll support so that we can see this come into a community. But then quietly, they are thinking, because of whatever life circumstance, I have to set down the thing that God gave me to do. and they know it and they're looking at it, what would you say to that person that's right there and they see it? They know that they've set it down. They know that there's a cost to picking it back up and they're just stuck in that space. What would you say to them?
I know from experience, because I've stepped away from time to time in my life, there is nothing that will fill you and preserve you and complete you like walking in the path that has been set out for you by God.
Yeah.
And so you have to be brave. It's scary. And sometimes you feel unworthy because you've set it aside and you don't feel even worthy enough to pick it up or even worthy enough to utter his name or pray. In my experience, the first step, you take one step, he takes two.
Yeah, that's so good.
One of my mentors always says, do everything you can in the natural and then let God handle the supernatural, And so I would say that there are practical needs that have to be met. Your family has to have food and a roof on their heads. So, you probably can't quit your job and do nothing in the meantime. So, I mean, that is important. And there are times I've actually prayed for God to take my gift away or the desire because I don't know how to manage it always. But in addition to, take one step, but start small, but initially go to your inner circle, meet with your family. In my case, my husband and I have the 5 F's on our walls, and it's a filter for everything we do in our family. So it's faith, family, finance, fitness, and friendship. And no decisions are made that we don't run through those filters. So when we decided to do this, he said, okay, how many F's does it meet?
Yeah.
And we prayed about it, and the kids understood because they knew that meant they might have to watch TV when mommy works or something, which they were fine with. Yeah. But yeah, sometimes it's a planning process before you step in. Yes, pray about it, but then make your plans to make it possible because it won't happen if you're lazy about it.
Yeah.
And I also think, people think that gifts have to be grand, this grandiose thing.
Small.
The most quiet way is the way that you're really going to touch other people.
That's right.
And how you're going to be used.
Yeah.
And don't compare yourself to anybody else. That's happened to me, and I'm sure to you too, because when you have a gift that's kind of one of those things that people can hear and see and touch and feel, people are like, oh, I can't do that. There are so many ways to honor what you are.
But ironically, it happens to us. Pamela will play something, and I'll actually get like moody. Yeah. Like, I'm not that good. Yeah. She's like, okay. But so you do have to, the world will tell you you're not good enough, and someone's always better.
Yep.
Okay, well, then just get better one day at a time at what you are good at and what your gifting is in.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that's so good. And I think for everybody listening, go back and just listen to that again, because V3 is leading with beauty. We're trying to celebrate these artistic works that are helping us to recover this thing that's been lost. But at the end of the day, the life and beauty of the gospel comes through people. Mm-hmm. It comes through God animating his artistry in the ways that he has created and called us to be in the world. And so your particular use of your gift and nurturing of it is beautiful. And I hope this conversation catalyzes for you all. There's some gift in you that in the same way fills the world with life and beauty. And this is what good art should do, right? You make art and it inspires and it draws us in, and then something happens in us. And so I think you've done that today. We'll have to leave it there. But Undercover Elves, what a fantastic show. I've already experienced it, and I can say it will impact communities and be such a beautiful light in the world in surprising places. So thank you for all of the hard work and behind the scenes work to stand it up. And congratulations on Dream Team shows. You'll now have people praying for you all as a company bringing theater back in a way that is salt and light, and it's good for the world. So thank you for those efforts. And for all of us, let's just pray for that $20,000 gap. Let's pray for the doors to open, and let's celebrate again when Undercover Elves hits a stage, hopefully in Tampa. We'll try for that. Yeah. There you go. Pamela, thank you. Sarah, thank you. And we'll just be cheering you on. But thanks we always say, here's to what we can't yet say, and we'll leave it there.
All right. Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. Thank you.